Good morning, everybody. I'm just allowing everybody to join us, to come in. A few people still booting up. So a very warm welcome from Cool Schools, and good afternoon to those of you joining us from afar. My name is Andy, and I'm a co-founder of the Fairtrade school uniform company, Cool Schools. After Cool Schools hosted a well-supported event as part of last year's Fairtrade Fortnight online festival, it's great that so many of you have chosen to spend your morning with us, hopefully to end your Fairtrade Fortnight 2022 on a bit of a Fairtrade cotton high. I want to get straight to the nub of this year's predominant Fairtrade Fortnight issue, climate change. During these events, together with our friends in the developing countries that are working daily to improve the lot of small-scale farmers, we all have an opportunity to further amplify the voices of fair trade producers on the front line of the climate crisis and the important role of businesses and consumers in supporting them to build greater climate resilience through fair trade. The climate crisis is now one of the biggest threats to the livelihoods of millions of small-scale farmers and agricultural workers in low-income countries worldwide, even though they've done the least to cause it. Today, we will learn how marginalised cotton farmers are no exception to the impact of climate change. On a brighter note, we will also learn what is being done by responsible supply chain managers, advisors and campaigners to mitigate these effects and nurture and support organic cotton growers. We are looking at a sustainable cotton journey today and at a clothing industry in which there remains massive worldwide exploitation of those that work so hard to make the clothes we love to wear. We're enormously lucky and privileged to have with us today two inspiring people from the cotton clothing industry in India who represent the opposite of that exploitative textiles industry phenomenon in Aaron and Ranga, and another inspiring person at the UK end in Jenny, who has spent the past 15 years working in international development and campaigning. So before we get to meet those brilliant people, a quick bit of housekeeping. As this is a webinar, you can see us, but we can't see you. We are recording the entire webinar and we will upload it in its entirety to the Cool Schools YouTube channel in the next few days. We should also point out at this stage that many of the photos of cotton farmers, factories and factory workers you will see in the Cool Schools host presentation today, including in this initial presentation slide, were taken when we last visited India in November and December of 2019 to spend some time with our cotton farmers and our friends in our ethical factory chain. Before we move quickly on to a quick program update, I just wanted to add that it is great to see that lots of teachers, students and fair trade campaigners from around the country have joined us today, as well as guests from different walks of life, plus international guests, all of whom I feel sure share our overriding and long-standing ambition to help make supply chains fairer to all who work in them. So thank you and welcome again to you all. We have changed the program order for today's session. Sadly, Aaron, the co-founder of Fairtrade-organic, has suffered food poisoning today, and although he cannot be with us live in conversation, we will see plenty of Aaron during the course of the proceedings, both in slides and also in a very special film that we took during our last visit to India, when Aaron talked us through how to grow organic cotton, actually talking in the cotton fields. And that's going to be a first public showing of that film. Nobody's ever seen it before. So we're quite excited to be able to bring that to you today. So the CEO of our India factory, Sriranga Rajan, or Ranga, as he's affectionately known to his friends, will talk from Bangalore, India, about the journey of the sustainable cotton from the cotton fields through the factory chain. And Ranga will also obviously cover some of the challenges either side of that film of Aaron telling us about how organic cotton is grown. Then after Ranga's contribution, we will hear from Jenny Foster, the project lead at the Global Goals Centre, when we will learn all about the Global Goals Centre and their exciting new game called Threads, designed to help young people learn about the long journey that our clothes make before they reach us. I've had a sneak preview, and it really is a fantastic game and a great way for young people to learn about the clothing journey. So a little bit about Cool Schools to start with. We were founded and received our Fairtrade license in 2010, and we imported our first Fairtrade school uniform into the UK in 2011. There are two main elements to the Cool Schools business. First, the establishment of ongoing Fairtrade education partnerships with our client schools UK-wide, all of which we run at no cost to schools. We are based in Southampton on the south coast, but we love travelling to schools all over the UK, and no school is too far away for us to visit. Our Fairtrade education partnerships involve the running of Fairtrade assemblies and class sessions and talking to school, student, Fairtrade and eco groups, student councils. We deliver presentations to parent teachers associations and parent groups, and we also talk to our wonderful UK Fairtrade campaign groups. We also offer pass-coded lesson plans on Fairtrade and Fairtrade cotton on the Cool Schools website. The important point for us on the education front is that the students understand why their school has made an ethical clothing choice. And in learning all about our sustainable cotton journey, they hopefully become more enlightened global citizens as a result. I just want to pause here briefly to thank and pay tribute to the Fairtrade Foundation's education campaigns team, and in particular to Claire Arnott, their Senior Education Campaigns Officer. Claire is a phenomenal source of support for our efforts to reach out on the Fairtrade cotton education front to a growing number of schools UK-wide. A key part of that process has been Claire consistently looking for ways in which Cool Schools might play a part in Fairtrade Foundation education activities. Not least this was Fairtrade Fortnight big CPD session with teachers from all over the country. Everyone at Cool Schools would like to thank Claire and wish her all the very best for the future. Now we come to the second main pillar of the Cool Schools business, the Fairtrade Eco uniform itself. At the very start of our business, back in 2010, we realised that although our Fairtrade uniform was certainly not going to be the UK's most expensive school uniform, by the same token, we could not compete in price with, for example, the big supermarkets or some of the big major school uniform wholesalers. The UK school uniform industry is a very profits-driven industry, as much of the rest of the clothing industry, and we wanted to be genuine market disruptors. So we have always worked hard together with our factories to produce a quality of uniform that has consistently been well above the average school uniform quality. This means that the schools that work with us can be assured of offering their students and parents good quality, affordable Fairtrade Eco uniform. We supply schools in Scotland, which for some time has been our fastest growing market, Wales, Northern Ireland and England, and we make it very easy for schools either to convert completely to Fairtrade uniform or to offer a Fairtrade choice to students and parents alongside their existing suppliers. Make it very easy for schools and school offices to embrace Fairtrade uniform, either a complete switch or as a Fairtrade choice. Now, before I introduce the panelists today, the first of our panelists today, I just wanted to quickly mention the Q&As. Please do ask questions as we go through the presentation today. We are going to take questions and answers right at the end of the session, just so that we don't interrupt the speakers and so on. But we would love to hear from you and see the questions that you're asking and field as many as we can at the end. Those that we can't get to today, we'll either post a blog in the next week or so with answers to the questions that we don't get to, or we'll send you individual answers via email, depending obviously on numbers. So today we're saying to Aaron Ambatipudi, who's in a hospital in Hyderabad, get well soon, and sorry you couldn't be with us, Aaron. He was taken to the hospital overnight due to food poisoning, and Aaron has sent us a message through Ranga and asked us to tell everyone at the webinar today that he is with us in spirit. Chetna is a not-for-profit organisation whose mission is to promote agroecological agriculture based on the three principles of sustainability: social, environment and economic, to enhance the livelihoods of their small-scale cotton farmers. We first met Aaron during the last Cool Schools visit to India at the end of 2019, just before the world was about to change inexorably due to the coronavirus pandemic. These days, the word inspiring is probably a little overused. Not so in this case. The work that Aaron and Chetna do is truly inspiring. And of course, that goes right through the cotton chain, through Ranga's factories and beyond. One example, before I go on to introduce Ranga and ask Ranga some questions, that photo you see in the slide is of a meeting that we were invited to attend between Aaron and a Fairtrade cotton producer cooperative committee in the Telangana region of India in the middle of the 2019 cotton harvest season. That morning, we had been to visit a cotton ginning factory where they effectively clean the cotton at the first factory stage to remove dirt, dead and live bugs, seeds for next year's harvest, and so on. Normally, the ginning factory would be processing only conventional cotton, but because of the amazingly strong network of industry contacts that Chetna has built up at the grassroots level, that ginning factory is shut down once a year in the middle of the cotton harvesting season to totally clean its machinery so that the side effects of harmful pesticides and fertilizers from conventional cotton cannot cross-contaminate. Thereafter, the ginning factory allows, for a short period, only organic cotton from the Chetna farmers to be processed through it. That's just one example of the high impact work that Fairtrade-organic are doing. I would like now to introduce our first speaker. Very warm welcome to Ranga Rajan, speaking to us from Bangalore in India. For those of you who attended the Cool Schools Fairtrade Fortnight webinar last year, Ranga needs little introduction. Good morning, Ranga. How are you?
Good morning, Andy. I'm very well. How are you?
Very well, thanks. And thanks for stepping into the breach a little earlier in today's proceedings than you had envisaged.
That's true. Yeah, Aaron sends his regards, and he is very sorry that he couldn't join. And he's doing well now, so he's okay.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. That's very good to hear. And we're very much hoping that Aaron will obviously be able to see the recording of the webinar when he's better. I just want to say to everybody that there's a slide of introduction of Ranga there. I could go on for hours about Ranga, but I'll just say just a few things, which is that Ranga really has been the truest of true friends to our ethical clothing business since its inception in 2010, 2011. Our one and only Fairtrade cotton license factory in Mauritius went bust in 2016, and we spent, frankly speaking, the next 2 years fighting to keep our business and the Cool Schools Fairtrade cotton flame alive. Had Ranga not intervened at a chance meeting with us in London in early 2018, with an offer to invest in a new factory relationship between Debella and Cool Schools, and when we were literally on our knees as a viable business, we would have been toast, as the expression goes. Ranga, if you would like, from a Cool Schools point of view, you're looking at someone who is really a very, very integral part of our business, and has helped us to reach where we are today as a business and stay alive as an ethical clothing business. But we're going to turn now from the factories, first of all, to the cotton, and you very kindly volunteered to answer some of those questions for us today. I think before we ask you about Aaron, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about your personal background and your attachment, if you like, to cotton farmers in India.
Yeah, sure. So Andy, I come from a cotton farming family. My grandfathers are small-scale cotton farmers. So I literally grew up in cotton field. And also I have seen deaths and despair from very close quarters. And also opportunities, what these farmers are looking, or what is that they want to do with their life and what can actually change their lives. And then when I, as a natural choice coming from a cotton farming family, when I did my textile engineering, and I really wanted to get back to or give something back to the farmers. And that is when I have met Arun and like quite a few social reformers. Like, I met Pushpanath Krishnamurthy, and then when I came to the UK, I met Harriet Lamb, and I met really inspirational people. And then I did have my personal experience of staying with farmers for 3 months. And when I stayed with them, 3 of the farmers killed themselves within a span of about a week, 10 days. And it, I was talking to them the previous day night till about 10, 11, and we were joking. And next day morning, they were not there. One farmer killed themselves, and after a few days, one more, and that made really a lasting impression on me, and a crude introduction or induction to the industry, so to speak. And since I know, all my relatives and parents are cotton farmers, I know that they are not really looking for any charity. All they wanted was fair price for what they produce, and some level of dignity and respect for what they are doing, and some hope for the future of them, and the future of the farming, and future of the children. So that is when I started getting into organic and fair trade farming. And from 2004, I have been working with fair trade cotton. In fact, the first fair trade shirt ever produced was produced in the factory that I was working at the time. And then slowly, I was living in the UK for 10 years. I did my studies there, and I worked in Fairtrade. As you know, that is when we fortunately met each other. And then when I came back, I was very clear that I definitely want to work something that that supports the farmers, not as a charity, but as a trade, through trade. And I very strongly believe that trade is the only way that we can alleviate poverty. So I started working with Arun, I knew before. So I started working with Chetna. So within Chetna, we started working with about 200 farmers. And currently, we are working with about 2,100 farmers, where we support the farmers, which we can talk about a bit later on, what is the kind of support that we are providing to the farmers. And then we convert that into finished product like garments for cool schools and few other brands in Europe, and we sell it to them. And yeah, that is what my background is, Andy.
Yeah, fascinating. So you're rather well qualified to talk about the cotton farmers, I think, Ranga. And on that one, if I remember rightly, you mentioned the very first Fairtrade cotton shirt in 2004. If I remember from your previous stories, the very first Fairtrade cotton farmer was quite a character, wasn't he?
He was Mr. Somji. He has been really a very inspiring character. He is, and in fact, I think I mentioned to you once, and when I think it must be about 3 or 4 years back, and when I met him, and he was asking, I stayed with him for a couple of days, and then he was asking me, why you are doing what you are doing, why you are going all around the world and talking about us. And I said, no, I feel that you are part of our family, and we want to tell your story to others. And then he asked me, and then change your lives. And he said, okay, have you changed? And then said, no, that is what I'm trying. And then he told me something that really that stuck with me. He's told, yes, you are talking to everybody all over the world, and these people are really well-meaning people, and but you cannot really make any change but just by talking, because you are just creating community of people who are more community of bigger community of people who are feeling pity for us. And what we don't or what we are looking for is not pity. We just want fair price and respect for what we do, and and better future for our children. And that can happen only through action. So whomever you meet, and that is supposed to be by at the end of the conversation today, I wanted to request, but since you have brought up now, I can tell that what he said was inspired action is what can actually change everybody's life. And that inspired action can be anything. It can be, smallest things, such as asking the brand that you're working with, where is your cotton coming from? Or you actively you choose Fairtrade certified or Fairtrade-organic certified garments. Or you go and ask your council, local council, what are you going to do about our supply chain? Can we do something about the brands that are not respecting, or brands that are willfully exploiting the farmers and workers? And the moment you start taking inspired action, and when it's snowballing, then even if you want, you cannot stop the change happening. And that is what he told me. And he still remains, he's really the first Fairtrade certified farmers, and he still remains to be true inspiration in not just in cotton cultivation, but when we talk about societal role and parental role, and he almost become like a mentor for me.
And how fitting that that message has come from the very first Fairtrade cotton farmer.
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
So if we look at that slide, we can see Ranga and Aaron in conversation at the Chetna offices back in 2019 when we last visited. And I'm sure Aaron won't mind, Ranga, if you might be able to tell us all a little bit about Aaron and what inspired him to start Chetna in 2004.
Arun, I know him for almost 25 years now, and he has been a really hardcore socialist reformer, or I would say social reformer, and he has been actively advocating for changes, policy changes, and I think it must be in the late 90s, and he said actually farmers are facing existential crisis, and without farmers we won't exist. And for various reasons, cotton farmers have been really the most exploited one from colonial time till now. And he has been inspired by the, I think the book was called Empire of Cotton and the Brief History or something like that. It is by, I think it is Seven Eckert, if I'm not wrong. So he said, we had to do something about it, and we had to create a value chain community. And he didn't talk about development. He didn't talk about, solving farmers' problem. What he did say was we had to develop a value chain community where, all the community members, starting from cotton farmers till the brands, can join together, because farmers are at the invisible end of the value chain when it comes to textiles. So let us bring them together. And then we find a solution for everybody. And whatever cotton farmers, the small scale cotton farmers, they have very poor infrastructure. They do not have money to invest in the farm or on themselves, and they have been exploited quite badly. So what can we do about it? And that is how he started Chetna. I think it was in 2004, with about 234 farmers in 19 villages in Telangana and Maharashtra state of India. And within 15 years now, it has grown to become 35,000 farmers. And I think out of that, 14,000 farmers are Fairtrade certified, and they grow cotton. And it is not just about the cotton farmers, but also the value chain community that he talked about. We have almost about 20 spinning mills that are associated with Chetna, and almost 25 brands. And thankfully, Cool Schools is one of the brands that are purchasing cotton from Chetna. So all these brands and community, now we look at together and say, okay, what can we do to the farmers to make farmers or farming community sustainable, so that they don't have to depend on external intervention. So it's been really an inspiring journey of what Arun has started.
That's fascinating. I certainly remember the first visit I ever made to India was back in 2014, which you, Ranga, kindly hosted. And I remember sitting with a group, with a Fairtrade committee, the cooperative committee of farmers close to Titligarh in Odisha, which you see just above the Telangana arrow there. And I remember them saying to us, look, we realize that we're the lucky ones because we have Fairtrade certification and we get a decent price for our cotton, whatever happens. But we've got literally thousands of farmers in this area knocking at our doors saying, we want to join. But, one of the messages that we often put out to the students is that 70% of our clothes are made with cotton, and still less than 1% of those cotton clothes, carry the Fairtrade mark. So we still have a long way to go. And I was going to ask you, Ranga, if you could briefly explain some of the main ways in which Chetna supports the cotton farmers, please.
I think the Chetna's intervention at the farm level is what you call as 360-degree intervention. So it starts with institution building. So one of the biggest problem that small scale farmers have is they are quite fragmented. and they do not have, they're all individual farmers. They do not have any collective bargaining or even to meet and discuss. So Chetna actively go and build institutions, whether it is a farmer group, self-help group, and then self-help group go into a village, farm into a village blocks, and then from village block into a farmer cooperative, and then farmer cooperatives into a bigger cooperative where all, at least about, I think, 2 or 3 blocks are members of the cooperative, which are democratically selected and run by the farmers themselves, and supporting the farmers to build that institution. And also these are farmers, so they don't have experience in running institution, so provide them that administrative support in running those institutions. And then the other key part is, of course, the technical and quality control aspect of organic cotton farming. That starts with the right kind of seed selection, and what kind of soil health they have to maintain, and what kind of fertilizers. Because when we talk about not using harmful pesticide, doesn't mean pests are not there. The pests are still there, and we have to address how you can manage the pests without using harmful pesticide. So for that, the farmers need support, they need techniques. So a lot of technical input and research reports, research support that Chetna provides. And then after, including best practices from different crops and different countries. There are Chetna agronomists going to Brazil and get trained on best practices, and then come and implement in Chetna. So these kind of supports that farmers cannot really do on their own. And also the training centers which you have visited, Andy, where there are farmers can actually see what are the best practices and how they can implement it in their farm, and the different seeds, different kind of cottons, and how they have to grow. They can see it physically. And then the other important block element is the market linkages. Once the farmers, that one of the biggest exploitation happens with the small scale cotton farmers is the middlemen who provide or who do not provide fair price to the farmers. They tend to exploit by, by providing really low price, and they do a lot kind of malpractices, including weighing. They don't even weigh properly. They have always 10-20% lower weighing measurements. So all these support that Chetna provides, and they provide their farmers' own weighing balance. In fact, most surprisingly, when we started with I have to tell this story. When we started with the Fairtrade cotton in Chetna, Fairtrade certification, the first Fairtrade premium ever received by the farmers. So we have been asking them, what do you want to buy with that? And I was expecting, or in fact, most of us was expecting some kind of a food or some kind of farm equipments, or or fertilizers, some natural fertilizer. But all the farmers unanimously, what they wanted was a fair balance, weighing balance. And they said, this is where we were getting exploited. So we want a balance that is fair. And in fact, at the time CEO of Fairtrade Foundation, Harriet Lamb, she came and she presented the weighing balance to the farmers. So Chetna provides these kind of support and market linkages, so that they don't have to go through the middleman. Instead, they sell directly to the brands, which means they get a higher premium. And then it goes back to from the brands or from the Fairtrade premium, what kind of social development projects that the farmers can do, whether it is on women empowerment or children education, or investing back into the farm, or what we call as farm improvement. So all these blocks, building blocks, Chetna actively advise them on, so that the whole idea is coming back to how in 3 to 5 years the farmers can become a sustainable community. So when the community becomes sustainable, anything they produce is a sustainable product.
Well, that's interesting, and that point about the weighing balance is a classic example of how the cotton farmers can be exploited without that sort of support that they receive, well, both from Fairtrade but also from Chetna. And I was just going to ask you briefly, before we have a look at the film of Aaron in the cotton fields. I was just wondering very briefly, Rang, if you could just cover a few of the the climate change challenges and some of the things that Chetna helps the cotton farmers with on that front.
Yeah, sure. And I have to pick on your initial briefing when you told that everybody is facing climate change crisis, and farmers are no exception. And I have to tell you, farmers are really not exception. They are in the forefront. Considering now, if you see the last 2 years, there is unseasonal rain, there is a heavy rain, and sometimes there is drought. So the farmers are really at the forefront of climate change crisis. They till about October, November, they have very heavy rain, and that too when the cotton harvest was about to happen. So which means they lost almost 20-25% of their produce. And now we are in March, early March, and they don't have drinking water, or they are struggling to get drinking water. So that is the crisis they have to go through. And that is where when we create a value chain community with brands and with factories and with a like-minded organization, we try to find a solution. Now we are trying to see what kind of a community irrigation or community well that we can give to each of the villages that we are working with. In fact, some of the places we have already started, and then how we can avoid the soil degradation due to climate change, the climate change impact, which means we have to do the coverage of the soil. And when there is no rain and when there is no green leaves anywhere, how do we do the coverage? That is when we bring expertise from elsewhere, how it is being done in Israel or some other countries where where the weather is quite quite warm. So we bring that technology to the farmers. Okay, this is how you can actually cover your soil, which means when the rain comes, your soil is still healthy and you will get a better yield. Because if the soil is getting degraded for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, it is getting exposed to very high temperature, then the yield for the following season, it goes down by at least 7 to 10%. So how we can protect that? And those are the solutions that we are trying our best to provide, but we don't know what is, how we can protect them from the impact of the climate change. But, all of us as a community, we are trying our best to provide. And the only solution we see is, more and more people trying to adapt, or when the farmers get more and more business, when they know actually through this organic farming and through this, we can address the climate change effectively. And there are people behind us, through the entire value chain, including the consumers, that behind us, then they go forth confidently, they invest in the farm, they try to protect as much as possible from the climate change impact.
That's fascinating. And we hear a lot about the challenges of farmers in respect of climate change, and you put it very clearly that those massive challenges that they face, and undoubtedly the massive challenges that those conventional farmers face throughout your country, Ranga, and one's heart goes out to them for the support that they're not getting in parallel. So we're going to move on now, and we're going to see this very special bit of film. It's about 11 minutes. Just to give you a bit of background on the film, I'd like to thank our company chair, Neville Merritt, for editing the film and for giving me the training required to make short films on my iPhone. This is one such film, and it was taken in the marginalized cotton farming region of Telangana, India, on the 25th of November 2019, in the middle of the cotton farming sort of harvest, and 2 days into the last School's visit to the country. I'm enormously grateful to Aaron for responding positively to our request that day to tell us on film how organic cotton is grown. Because of COVID, which reared its ugly head shortly after my visit, sadly, we have not been able to visit India since. The film plays perfectly on our system here, but there could be a slight lag between what you see on screen and what you hear. Because of the vagaries of Zoom, there's nothing we can do to cure this. So I would urge your patience, please, if you do have some transmission problems. And if there is a bit of disconnect between screen and voice, please concentrate on the fascinating information that you are hearing from Aaron. So I'm going to optimize my video clip. I'm going to turn off my video, and I'm going to start playing.
I'm Arun Ambatipudi, and I the co-founder of Fairtrade-organic. Currently, I am an advisor to Fairtrade-organic. Basically, in 1 acre of cotton farm, you sow 5,000 seeds. It's basically 4,800 meters. So you sow 60 into 90 or 90 into 90 spacing, 90 centimeters into 90 centimeters. So roughly you sow 5,000 seeds at a gap of 90 by 90. And for that, you will have a germination of about 90%, 80 to 90%. So when you sow the seed, within a week's time, you will see a small plant coming up with 2 leaves. That is called true leaf stage. From true leaf, it goes into full stage. Before that, there are small flowers, small squares and balls. This is basically a you can see a square converting it into a flower, yellow flower. From yellow flower to pink flower, it takes 1 day. It converts into pink. That is when the pollination is taking place. Then after that, it converts into bowl. This is the bowl. You can see these are bowls. So these bowls take something like a month or so to become big, round, and then they are green in color, but over time, with good sunlight, they become black and they burst. So all put together, and the bowl bursts and you get cotton. In a bowl, approximately you have 2.5 to 3 mg, 3 grams of cotton, seed cotton available. And how we calculate per plant is if you have 50 bowls per plant, 50 into 3, 150 grams. 150 into 4,000 plants is about 600 kg. So that is how we compute an estimate of the production of cotton per acre. And this whole cycle from start to finish, anything between 130 to 155 days is the cropping cycle for this. When the crop goes tall, people think it is very nice, like that plant there. But what we say, when the crop goes tall, we say you have to nip it. When you nip this top, then you have these branches. These are sympodial branches. This is monopodial. It goes straight. What is important is to have these branches, because these branches produce those flowers in the balls.
Like pruning, like pruning a rose.
Like pruning,
in England.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can see here, early stage, right? See, you can also see this reddening. This reddening is because of heavy rain, exposed to heavy rains, and you have a deficit of magnesium and boron. So for this, you need to spray, not liquid chemicals, but cow urine based solutions, so that you can give special magnesium and boron to address boron deficiency. Otherwise, this will not help the plant.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the cow urine solution? Is that something that is something that's kind of passed around or sold around the farms?
No, it is not sold around the farms. It is basically farmer women as groups, as self-help groups who come together. Then they are given drums of 100 liters each.
Right.
So what they do is they collect all the urine from the cows, and then with the urine they mix cow dung.
Right.
With that cow dung they mix other some leaf extracts, and then they prepare that solution. And that solution is fermented for about 30 days or 15 days, depending on inoculants that you add. Once it is nicely fermented, what it has done is then it is filtered. Then you get a nice liquid. For every, I would say, 15 liters of a spray tank that you have, you use about 1 liter of cow urine and that solution, and you spray on the plant. Advantage with cow urine solution is that it acts both like a pesticide as well as a growth regulator. It also enhances productivity.
Okay.
And it also addresses the issue of deficiency in the plant.
And a bit like the GMO seeds phenomenon, over the longer term, it's better for the plants. It's better for for yields over time, presumably, rather than using pesticides and so on.
Yeah, because pesticides and fertilizers have their shelf life. Especially pesticides, if you keep spraying, pests develop resurgence and resistance. Because insects and pests are very clever. The moment that they see that they are close to extinction, they fear that they are close to extinction, they start multiplying faster under the influence of pesticides. For example, in rice in Indonesia, diamond black moth, which is a pest in rice, has shown multiplication to the tune of 800 times under the influence of pesticide, because it feared that its progeny will not continue. So they were very clever, very adaptable. So I think in the long run, the focus should be on to maintain agroecology, not to disturb the ecology, let the biodiversity be there, and allow the natural predators like dragonflies, like beetles, these to feed on those pests like larvae, feeding on the caterpillars. So there's a natural cycle. So we don't have to disturb the cotton plant, because cotton ecology is very special. This is the only plant in the world that can host more than 250 species, including human beings. So 250 species depend on this plant for survival, including human beings. No other plant can show that kind of biodiversity. While people say cotton takes a lot of pesticides, needs GMOs, is very thirsty. No, it is not very thirsty. It is a very drought resistant crop. It only needs critical irrigation. So we should focus on not disturbing, and cotton also has a natural compensation ability. It compensates itself for a small loss. So no disturbance, leave it alone with some preventive action. For example, people spray when there is some aphids on it. Sometimes you don't have to spray anything, just spray water. It just needs to drop down. It cannot survive once it's in the soil. It's all preventive. And cow urine, there are also many other ways that our farmers teach, which we have learned from our own farmers. They have developed extracts with 10 different leaves for spraying on the plant. These leaves include custard apple leaf, papaya leaf, then leaf that a goat does not eat, because generally goats eat anything. So when goats don't eat something, it means that that leaf is toxic. So these 10 different leaves from 10 different plants are brought together, a concoction is prepared, filtered, and it is put in a spray tank and sprayed. Then there is another spray called chili garlic. You use green chili, garlic.
Chili garlic spray,
garlic,
really?
Yes, extract, you spray. Similarly, neem seed kernel extract, neem.
So neem is what they put in the soil with the seed, right?
Yes,
to protect.
It becomes a tree, then you have neem leaf and neem fruit. So what they do is neem seed. You take the seed kernel, you crush it, mix it, and then you use 5% of that liquid, add it into 100% water. It becomes a very toxic spray. So there are many other ways.
And all we're talking all organics here, aren't we?
All organic ways of managing.
Yeah. So
other than that, you don't see here, but there are also ways of, in the season, you'll also see that farmers put a stick with a trap. It is called yellow sticky trap. It's a yellow board and they put some gum on it. So the idea is that insects will come, get stuck to it, because insects are attracted to yellow and blue.
Yeah.
Similarly, there is another way called pheromone traps. So there are lures that are put in the farms where they attract a male moth so that females can come and get stuck into that, because females are the ones that are producing. So they get stuck seeing a male moth. So various ways of managing.
Just to give an idea of the timescales here, from the day on which the first cotton boll burst open in this field, for example, how many days until the last boll yields cotton? So how long from the start of the harvest till right to the very end?
So you will have about 3 to 4 pickings. So each picking will last for about a week. So now if you have the first picking, first picking is almost over. You will have the second picking sometime in December. And end of December, it's almost over. But if you have a rain in December, then you have a third flush in January. You'll still have a flush.
So just for the record, we're talking on the 25th of November to get those timescales into
So I would say now the first picking is almost over.
Yeah.
So women work for almost a week's time in this farm. Then after this, they take a break, and they will again have sometime in December 10th a second flush. They will start picking for a week. Then they take a break. Then January first week, they do the final picking. If they're very lucky, they might have last picking sometime end of January, but most likely not.
And how has the harvest been this year? Has it been a good year?
This year, there was unprecedented rainfall. We have not seen rainfall happening in October and November. So we have seen unprecedented rainfall this year across India.
Sounds like England.
Yeah, sounds like England. It's been unprecedented because we have
Right.
seen in Adilabad, which is a good rainfall zone. We get about in this belt we get about 1,000 to 1,200 mm of rainfall per year. But we had a lot of rainfall, so there was some damage to the crop, especially those bolls at the bottom part of the. Not on this plant, but generally
Okay.
at the bottom plant we have seen some damage. But because there have been rainfall, we also saw that it will compensate. So we expect this year to be similar to last year, anything between 600 kg to 800 kg per acre.
Okay. So if it's a damaged ball, one last question, sorry. If it's a damaged ball, is it, you can just see that it's rotten, yeah, is it?
Like this.
You can see it's not
Okay,
fully-
right.
It is
Okay.
immature.
Yeah, yeah,
So farmers will pick this. They will not stop picking this.
yeah,
So this will be picked. See, it is taking time.
yeah.
It will not mature. See,
Okay, yeah,
they will pick this. It is hard.
Yeah.
But they will. They are taught in Chetna that if they pick this and mix it with the cotton, they might lose on the money because this is waste cotton, yellow cotton.
right.
This can be sold, but this will not be used
green
for
as well, see.
not
See
for
the green
clothing.
mark.
This will
No,
be used
no.
for mattresses,
I
filling
see.
mattresses.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's also
The green
moist.
mark, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a sign of damage.
Okay, yeah, yeah. It's hard,
So it
hard,
will
isn't
discolor,
it? Yeah,
it will discolor, it will become yellow.
Aaron, thank you very much indeed.
Well, Aaron, hopefully you will be able to watch this webinar when you are better. And I'm sure that if we could actually see and hear the audience today, we would now be witnessing a big round of applause. And I can assure you it wouldn't be for the cameraman. I've always wanted to share that film more widely, and where better than at a Fairtrade Fortnight event during a period in which we are looking at the link between fair trade and climate change. Before we go on to talk to Ranga in detail now about the next stage, the journey of the sustainable cotton, it's worth reminding ourselves of the extent of a clothing factory chain, a cotton clothing factory chain. We go from the cotton harvest at the top there onto the ginning factory, which we mentioned earlier, which effectively cleans the cotton, then onto a spinning factory. We end up with fair trade cotton yarn. It goes on to our knitting factory, where it's knitted. In the case of the Cool Schools garments, most of our garments are polycotton mixed garments, so it's knitted then together with recycled polyester. Then onto a dyeing factory. That's the color of the fabric out of the knitting factory into the dyeing factory. So it's what we call a greyish color before the fabric is actually dyed. And then finally in the middle, the cut, make and trim factory, which is the final develop factory in the process. I hope I got that order right, Ranga.
I think it is right. Yeah.
So I was just, we'll go on to the factory chain now, Ranga. And just to start with, we hear many terrible stories of bad working conditions in clothing factories worldwide, and the often sad human cost of mass-produced clothing. How is the Dibella sustainable cotton factory chain different? I realize you could spend about 3 hours answering that question, but just give us an idea.
No, I think, what we are looking at is to match whatever the cotton is coming out from the farm. We want the values to be maintained till it reaches the final consumer. So what it means is, at each of the conversion process, how it is processed, and what is the environmental impact of the process. And when I say how it is processed, it depends on what is the working conditions, and whether people have fair working conditions, and whether they are paid fair wages, and whether they are if at all they have grievances, whether they are addressed. So each of the stage, starting from spinning and weaving and dyeing, and then it comes into a factory. And most of the stories that you hear are either, if you talk about working condition exploitation, that is mostly in the garment factory, and to a large extent in spinning. And environmental impact of textile production is mostly in the dyeing. So what we ensure is, each of the spinning and dyeing mill are thoroughly vetted, visited by us, and also monitored by us on one on the working conditions and on the environmental impact, whether the machines are energy efficient, and how the wastewater is recycled, and what kind of dyes are used, whether it is approved for gods and there is no harmful substances, and how the dye is applied, and after the application of the dye, what happens to the water and what happens to the waste dyes, or the extract, the dye extract. So all these are closely monitored. For example, our dyeing, 93% of the water is recycled, and rest of the water which goes into the sludge, and that sludge is taken out every single we always work with zero liquid discharge dyeing facility. So we don't go into dyeing facility which lets water out after dyeing. So that is absolute no-go. So it is always on zero liquid discharge dyeing facility. And apart from 93% water recycling, even the steam that has been used is captured again and reused. And that is the level that we go to. And then when it comes to working condition, of course, once it reaches our factory, as you have seen, it is a greenfield factory, which is about 2 hours drive from Bangalore. And we have 93% of the workers are women, and all these women, they come from nearby villages. And normally we selected this this place because these women, in normal case, they don't have any other employment opportunity. So they go to big cities like Chennai and Bangalore, and they work as a housemaids and go through all kind of exploitation. So our idea was to have the facility here so that they can be trained on sewing and various work opportunities within the garment factory, and then we can provide them employment long term. And we as a business, we will have a very good loyal workforce that is attached to the factory, and that is very committed to the factory and our vision. And also they get employment opportunity and not go through fair working conditions and hygienic working conditions, and we take care of them. We take various measures, like we have crush for all the employees, and then we have medical facilities. And during COVID time, even before the government has started, we vaccinated the entire workforce, and also all the employees and their families, so that they can, they don't have to worry about or wait for government to do something or the vaccination, and they don't have to go to private vaccination at a very expensive cost. And also, even we have about 23-bed hospital facility. I'm sure you have seen some of the horror scenes in India, without people lying on the street without oxygen and without hospital beds. So at the time, we have actually had 23-bed hospital facility within our factory, with doctors visiting with oxygen. So these are the kind of close attention we take to ensure that, again, it goes back to building a value chain community, and we consider our cotton farmers and our employees as integral part of our value chain community.
And that photo in the bottom right of the slide is your new factory. It's about 80 kilometers outside of Bangalore, isn't it, Ranga, I think, roughly?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And tell us a bit about the eco-friendliness of your factory, because that's also a fascinating story.
Yeah, we are 100% solar powered, and all the machine we use are dry head machine, which is extremely energy efficient. And even the fans that for ventilation, what we use what we call as HVLS, which is a high velocity low speed fan, which uses 1/10 of the energy of regular fans. And you need just for, we have about 44,000 square feet of factory. The entire floor can be managed, the ventilation level will be so good with about 5 fans. We do not have more than 5. And we also have what we call as, the highlight system, or where we have glass panels. It is a Japanese system where it condenses the sunlight and then sprays inside the factory. So we have very good, lux within the factory without switching on the electricity. In fact, I don't remember last time we have switched on our electricity light in a daytime till about 5:30. We always switch on the light only after 5:30 because we have this skylight system. And the same thing for, in terms of waste generation, we pay very close attention on the kind of waste we are generating and how we can reduce the waste. All our cut waste, it is converted into paper, which, we can be used for packaging. And all the water, even the water we use for all the washrooms and the kitchen, everything is recycled. 100% of our water is recycled. And we have a rainwater harvesting system where almost 8 months of our water usage is from the harvested rainwater.
Okay, that's an amazing story, and what a pleasure to be able to work with a factory chain like that. Ranga, just before we introduce Jenny Foster, I wanted to ask you one last, slightly personal question, I suppose. I don't know whether it would be fair to say that your career in the industry in India has been sort of split into two parts, with a stint in London at the Fairtrade Foundation kind of in the middle almost. But I was just going to ask whether earlier in your career in the clothing industry, did you ever find yourself working in factories whose management ethics you weren't comfortable with?
I would say yes, but to a not lot extent. But what I was, I was in charge for assessing few factories, and there I have seen a lot of, a lot of times I ran into places where I was extremely uncomfortable with the ethics of how the factory is running. Unfortunately, this industry, especially in spinning and in the CMT, you come across quite a lot of factories which are not really, we can't say they're following the right ethics. And again, I won't blame only the factory, it is also the brands, which are really pushing the factories to, a low price and quick turnaround time, which is unreasonable. Whatever poor planning, and they want a higher margin at the Western countries, and they push the factories, whether what the factory management is doing is right or wrong. I'm not the one to judge, but I can say that definitely there is a lot of drive is, or the reason behind is from the brands which are pushing for unreasonable prices, unreasonable lead time. And I have seen many instances where for 2 cents, the millions of dollars of business have gone to a different country and different factories, which means for the factory owners, whether if there is no order, what you have planned for the next 3 months is suddenly it is not there for 2 cents. What do? You run into heavy losses, because you have to still run the factory. You still have to pay the wages. But so then they tend to cut corners, and whether that act itself is right or wrong, we would never do that. For example, we would never do that business. But some out of existential crisis, some factories might do that. So I ran into quite a few factories like that. And that is one of the inspiration for me. When I came back, I decided we will never do our operation like this. We will do the right thing, whether our customer demands or not. If some customer demands that, then he is not the right customer for us.
I do remember during our visit in 2014, hearing more than one story about a big brand having a big factory in a community, more or less being the sole source of employment. And then for those 2 cents that you mentioned, them, maybe moving off to Bangladesh or something, and literally whole communities being wiped out in terms of employment as a result. So yes, indeed. Yeah.
And these brands are, unfortunately, sometimes these brands or retailers are the one claimed to be really ethical, and they market to the consumer first, and they are doing 200 things, but on the ground, because of them, there are a lot of factories going out of existence. So it's unfortunately sad story, or sad end of this greenwashing that is happening, or that has been happening for a few years now.
This is the reality, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Ranga, I don't know quite how to thank you for your enormous contribution today. It's been absolutely fascinating to hear you talking about both the cotton farmers and the factory chain, and I'm sure the audience will join me in saying a big thank you, and agreeing that next time I see you, you deserve a very large box of Fairtrade chocolates. So we'll make that a we'll make that a deal, and thanks in advance for hanging on for the questions and answer sessions at the end. So if I could ask you to now switch your video and mic off. Thank you. And we'll see you again in a while. Hello, Jenny.
Hello,
Welcome to you.
lovely to see you. Thank you so much. Wow, Ranga is such an inspiration. It's very hard to follow him, but yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you.
No, and thank you very much for joining us today. I was trying to remember when we first met. I think it was around about 2012, 2013 at the first Bristol Fairtrade Awards.
Yeah.
We've thankfully our paths have crossed ever since. So in the interest of time, I'm going to disappear now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand over the floor to you, Jenny, and we'll see you in a little while.
Lovely, thank you. So bear with me while I just share my screen, everybody. It's lovely to be here. So I'm project lead at Global Goals Centre, which is based in Bristol. We're an education charity, and we work to raise awareness and get people mobilised to take action for the Sustainable Development Goals. So let me just make sure I'm optimising. I'm optimised. Good. Let's try that again. Okay, so we all know, I'm sure, about the Sustainable Development Goals, but I thought I'd put them up in case you weren't aware of them. So these are 17 goals that every country in the world has signed up to. Fairtrade Foundation is certainly supporting of these goals, and if you just have a look at them, you can see how much Fairtrade system and everything that Ranga's been speaking about this morning meets many of these goals, everything from no poverty and zero hunger, to decent work, to responsible consumption and production, clean water. All of that is relevant to the clothing industry. So we have actually been developing with young people a game to play about the clothing industry. And the reason that we did this is because when we worked with some young people, we found out that they knew lots and lots about plastics and about climate change, but they hadn't thought at all about how their clothing was impacting on both climate and people. And many of the stories that we've heard today, that was just a revelation to them. They didn't know at all. But it is quite a complicated supply chain, as you've seen this morning. So we've developed a game to enable young people to learn more about the realities of their clothing, how it gets to us, and all the processes in between and all the people that are involved. So we wanted to share the game with you this morning. So I'm going to play through a little bit of it, and hopefully this will work now. So the game is free to access, and you can run it. It doesn't run on mobile phones, I'm afraid. And if you're running it in a school, you will need to get through the firewall because it's on a gaming site. So it is doable, but you just need to let your IT people know that you're going to be using that. So here we go. So you can see it's quite sort of simple with nice images. You can just put your name in. You can play as a class if you want to just do it from the front. But you can also play individually, which the children that we've done it with in schools have absolutely loved. So I'm going to choose the t-shirt because we've been talking about cotton today.
Sorry to interrupt, Jenny. We're actually we've got a blank screen here, so I'm just wondering if you pressed the optimization of the video.
I did. Let me try that again. Yes, it's ticked. It says optimised for video clip and share sound. Thanks for letting me know. Can you see that now, Andy? Is this working, Andy? Hello? I'm hoping you can see and hear this now.
So I think, yeah, we're in the same boat, Jenny. We've still seen a blank screen. We've got a little bit of sound. It might be, so perhaps it might be worth just talking us through the game and its objectives. Unfortunately, we can't see it.
Okay, that's fine. Can you see the screen now? Just with
We can see the screen now. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, right. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, so basically when you go onto the game, you just follow the journey of, you can choose either a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or a pair of jeans, and it will take you through what it's made from, the material it's made from, the difference between organic cotton, you know, or whether polyester is made from plastic, and then it will go through the whole journey from being made in a factory, who's made it, where it's made, the conditions that they're in, and then how it gets to you. So whether it's by lorry or ship, some of the carbon results of that, and then how you buy it. So whether you buy it in a shop or online, and some of the impacts of that as well. And then it goes on very importantly as well, which hasn't been covered so far today, about what we do with our clothing when we don't want it anymore, because obviously this is really crucial in terms of climate impacts. So the fact that you can recycle it or pass it on to somebody, or to mend it as well, rather than just throwing something away because it's got a hole in it or a button's fallen off or whatever. So it'll take you through all of those different aspects, but in quite a fun way, and you can make choices as you go through. You can click on different options to decide for yourself. So I hope that you'll be able to get onto that. I will share the links and everything in the chats once I've finished the presentation. So I'm sorry that you couldn't see the game, but hopefully you can go on to that later. Along with the game as well, we've also developed a series of lesson plans. So these are just literally pick up and use lesson plans, which I hope for any teachers watching will be a real gift. And they're available on our resource hub. Again, I'll put the link into the chat afterwards. As you can see, there's 8 of them, and they cover all sorts of things, everything from looking at your label to see where your clothing is from, the geography of it and also what it's made from, through to all kinds of things about factories, about climate anxiety and feeling a bit overwhelmed by the issues, circular economy, and then what you can do, the actions that we can all take. And the good thing about clothing is that many of the actions that we as individuals can take, even as young people, are very affordable. So we're not talking about buying expensive electric cars or solar panels. We're talking about things like buying less, buying secondhand, looking out for fair trade and organic options, recycling our clothing, mending our clothing. So mostly things that will actually save money, which is a real positive in this whole arena. So we have been running some workshops in schools, and these are some of the buttons that young people have sewn on. So we've taught them how to sew on a button so that they can learn the basic mending skills, so they don't have to throw something away if something needs that simple repair doing to it. And then on their piece of fabric, they were writing what they wanted to change about the fashion industry. So we've got everything there from no plastics in the ocean, stop climate change, equality for women. So they picked out lots of different aspects of things that have come up for them in the game, playing the game, many of the messages that came out. They're understanding a lot better some of the issues that we're dealing with when we're looking at our clothing. So I do hope you'll have a chance to play the game, either when you get back or maybe in your classrooms. And we'd love to hear what you think of it. And please do join in the conversation on social media. It'd be lovely to get some feedback. And do look at the school's resources that we've got. They're all free, and you can just download whatever it is that you want to, the whole load of the resources, or just 1 or 2 of them if you want to just pick and choose 1 or 2 of the lesson plans. So we really want this to be part of the solution of young people and well, older people. I mean, anybody can play the game. It doesn't have to be for young people, just to understand and just have an accessible way of understanding more about how our clothing impacts. It accounts for about 10% of global carbon emissions. And obviously through Wrangler, we've learned a lot about the social impacts on people. So we really do need to get the message out there and encourage people to be shopping and caring for their clothes in a more sustainable way. So thank you so much. I'll stop sharing now and back to you, Andy.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That's brilliant, and what a brilliant initiative. I don't think in 12 years of running this business we've seen anything that's quite as suitable for teaching young people the extent of a clothing supply chain. So congratulations, and special request for a link on the Cool Schools website, please.
Absolutely, will do.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again now, and we're going to go on to questions. Ranga, if I could ask you please to switch on mic and video, thank you. Well, thanks first of all to both of you for those fascinating insights. And we haven't had a huge number of questions come in today, so I think you've both covered it all in many ways. But I've had a few questions coming in from people that haven't been able to attend today, that I've been in correspondence with, you know, teachers in schools and Fairtrade campaigners and so on. And in the course of doing my presentations around schools in the UK, I do obviously talk, for example, about the way in which Chetna works with cotton farmers to convert them from conventional to organic. And one question that has come up is, how easy is it to persuade the conventional cotton farmers, Ranga, to devote 3 years to converting to organic farming, especially if they think they get better yields by using harmful pesticides and fertilizers?
I would. This is almost like a journey. You know, when Chetna was started in 2004, and the first 3-4 years to convert the first, let's say 500 to 700 farmers, it was very challenging. You know, because one, it is organic farming takes a lot of, you know, it takes a lot of work. It is not that easy. And at the time, the premium for organic cotton is not that high. And Fairtrade was just started. They're not sure whether the markets will support it or not. So it was quite challenging. And but now, after seeing the impact of GMO, and when the farmers are you know, getting into debt cycles, and then we have organic farmers, which is you know, where yield is again a subjective thing. You know, when you talk about you know, high yield, what you have to talk about is, you know, high yield doesn't necessarily mean high net income. And what is important is, you know, what is the net income of the farmers. You know, but for example, even if you get, you know, using harmful pesticides and GMO, even if you get high yield, your input costs are quite high. So what it means is your net income is still lower. So for organic farmers, you know, even though the yield is slightly less for the initial years, but your net income still is equivalent or better than the you know, the conventional farmers. So after few years, it becomes easy. Now, for example, it is fairly easy to go to any. I mean, you have seen it, and a lot of customers came and they came and insist that you know, they come almost every week and insist, okay, we wanted to become part of this organic movement. So now it is easier. And when you talk about this first 3 years, you know, why it is 3 years, you know, why not 2 years? What happens in this 3 years is because due to continuous usage of synthetic fertilizer and harmful pesticides, you know, your soil health is so poor. So it is like, you know, and you cannot suddenly start becoming overproductive. It is like somebody who's on full medicine, and, you know, they have been in the hospital and they have been treated with high antibiotic, and then you ask them to run a race, you know, run a marathon. It is not possible. First, they have to build this health, you know, build the strength, and then they can, you know, their speed. In fact, after that, their productivity will be better than whatever. Even now, most of the Chetna farm, wherever we are doing, the farmers who are more than 5 years, 6 years in this system, their productivity is 10 to 15% higher than GMO cotton farmers, and their net income is almost 28% more than any conventional farmers across India. So because they don't have a high input cost, and their yield has now become better, or, you know, equal or better. So the first 3 years, yes, it is challenging. Some farms, it really depends on what is the health of the soil. Some farmers, if they have been doing pesticides or chemical farming for almost 20 years, 25 years, of course, the soil health will be really bad, which means you have to strengthen the soil. And there is, if your soil is not strong enough, and then your yield will go down. And that is where something like Fairtrade Premium, and that is where brands like us, we try to intervene and support the farmers during these 3 years to ensure that their income level is maintained, and also something like Fairtrade Premium, which can bridge the gap of whatever farmers are losing.
Well, that's fascinating. Thanks, Ranga. When we're talking about Chetna-organic and 30,000 cotton farmers, it might be helpful to put all that in context in terms of the size of the industry and the number of small-scale, subsistence farmers that are producing cotton on an annual basis. And I think you'd agree, Ranga, that 30,000 are a mere drop in the ocean.
Even in Indian context, India itself, there are more than 6.5 million cotton farmers. So 30,000 is really not even a drop in the ocean.
Yeah. So and similarly, because here in the UK, for example, increasingly we're talking about sustainability, ethically sourcing, sustainable cotton, fair trade organic cotton, but we probably need to remind the audience that it really is barely a drop in the ocean. So the challenge is enormous, but it's wonderfully inspiring, because Chetna Organic, as you mentioned to me, I think the other day, is actually the largest umbrella organic cotton not-for-profit organization globally, and its potential for growth is clearly there, because it's a massive industry in India. Ranga, we've had a question in from Fiona. Do we know of any UK brands which use trade cotton which adults can support?
I think you might be a better person to answer, because I don't know. It's been a long time, but I think Rapani and few other brands. But I do know that there are a lot of Scandinavian brands like Nudie Jeans and Knowledge Cotton Apparel and IIU. These are the brands that have been really pioneer, and they are really there on the field, and anything required for the farmers, they are the first one to support. And these brands do sell in the UK. Nudie Jeans is a best example, and Knowledge Cotton Apparel, and brands like SKFK and IIU. These are the brands that are really there. I don't know who is the UK originating brand, or the brands that are selling only in the UK. I'm not aware of any brands that support fully. And of course, Pants to Poverty was there before, but it doesn't exist anymore. But there are quite a few Scandinavian brands which do support, which work very, very closely with the farming community, and yeah, they do sell in the UK.
I have put a link in the chat actually to the Fairtrade Foundation's compilation of where to buy fair trade clothing and bedding and things. So do have a look at that. I'll put that in the chat. And there are a couple of other questions in the Q&A, Andy, if you wanted to delve into those.
Thank you, Jenny. The other one to mention, Ranga, immodestly on our part, is our own sustainable garments. You see the link to our website there, Sustainable. That's a range of luxury garments that Ranga's helped us to develop, principally for the National Union of Students contract that we're currently running. But you can actually buy those sustainable garments online on that website, on the sustainable.com website that you see on the questions and answers there.
And I do really recommend the sweatshirts, because they are absolutely gorgeous quality, and they wash brilliantly, and they're really not at all expensive. I totally recommend those.
Thanks for that additional plug, Jenny. One for you, Jenny. How difficult have you found it during the COVID period to maintain the goals and profile of the Global Goals Centre?
It was difficult, and one reason that we actually went into developing the online game is because we just weren't able to get into schools. So it seemed to be a logical response to COVID that we actually responded to the needs of teachers and also young people to do so much learning online. So yes, it very much impacted how we were able to work, and doing Zoom sessions, of course, with young people is, you know, it's lovely to be able to do it, and obviously to have Ranga be able to join us, it's got its advantages, but it's not the same as that face-to-face. So we were impacted, but I think what's most important is how COVID has thrown so much of the progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals, and actually now that we're beginning to emerge from it, it's even more important that we ramp up progress towards them and any actions that we are able to take towards climate and social justice. And I think COVID obviously highlighted those that have and those that don't. And it's just made those impacts really even more clear. So yes, I would say that, yes, it impacted us as a charity, but we've tried to adapt and do as much as we could to be creative and fun in other ways. And also just to highlight, as I say, the urgency now behind trying to achieve these goals and get more people working towards them.
Okay, brilliant. Ranga, we've had another question come in. What was the worst moment of your career in the cotton clothing industry?
Oh, there are quite a few. I
don't want you to depress us too much, Ranga.
No, like I was telling, you know, when I started staying with the, you know, I started my career by staying with the cotton farmers for 3 months, and you know, 3 farmers killed themselves at the time, and the first one was shock, and second one on 3rd day, and that was you know, that really I couldn't understand what was happening, and the third one was the real that hit me really badly, and yeah, that was really worse because, you know, for me, I've been looking at the industry that are making trillions of dollars of profit, and there is a, you know, glamour, and there is so much, and you know, the consumers, and then you have that industry, and then the cotton farmers who provide 60 to 70% of the raw material for that industry that is making trillions of profit, and these farmers killing themselves for $100, $200, which they are not able to repay. You know, maximum the farmers who have killed, all 3 had a debt of about, one had about $220 and other had about $350, and that they were not able to repay, and they are killing themselves. And that is not a fault of theirs. You know, it is, they are one of the most hardworking people I have ever seen, and it is not that, you know, they are sitting lazily and expect other people to help. All they wanted was whatever they produced, they just wanted somebody not to exploit them and pay fairly. And for me, it was very difficult to digest the injustice of the trade at the time. So it was really one of my lowest moments. And yeah.
Yeah, these are tough stories, and just to add, and you remember my first visit to India in 2014, and frankly speaking, Ranga, I had heard about this, what is the biggest wave of suicides in history, and it's horrible to you know, put it in statistics in many ways, and I have to admit to being a little bit skeptical about the numbers that I've heard of these suicides on an annual basis. But I can say that on that very first visit to India, we spent, what, 10, 12 days, I think, with the cotton farmers in Odisha, Ranga, and I don't think there was a single cotton farmer that, you know, that didn't mention a friend or you know, a family member or something that hadn't been directly affected by these suicides. And I was just wondering, Ranga, if you could describe, you were born into a cotton farming family. So, for example, you've told me the stories of your father. You're riding his bicycle with cotton, you know, X number of kilometers just to get a few more cents to sell that cotton. What are the challenges now in India to a conventional cotton farmer? Let's say, I think the price, the global cotton price and the price of cotton has been up, is up by 80% over the last 15 months, something like that. So what would be the challenges to a conventional cotton farmer of trying to sell that cotton and take advantage of that higher price? Because I know there are lots of middlemen in between and so on and so forth. So what are the main challenges?
The biggest problem is access to the market, because as a small cotton farmers, it's a small scale farmers who are selling, let's say 600 kilos of seed cotton, in an acre. If we get 600 kilos, that is, when you talk about, millions and millions of tons sold only from India, the 600 kilos is, he doesn't have any, any purchase, or sorry, any negotiation power. So, and also the access to the market, what I meant by that is physical access. So a small remote region, if we have to go to the nearest market, which will be at least about 7 or 8 kilometers, in which he has to go either in a bullock cart or in a cycle. So after reaching there, there will be only 1 or 2 traders within that entire small town. And these 2 traders will be working with each other. And even though I knew, and I have witnessed it myself, and even though I knew the farmers know exactly what is that day cotton price, because these days they announce in the radio and it comes in the newspapers and people do tell what is the cotton price. And that particular day when I was there, it was some like 47 rupees was the market price. And the trader was asking him 36 rupees. That is almost like about 12% less. And these farmer who has traveled 6-7 kilometers, he cannot take back the cotton, and because it is 12% less. Where will he sell if he take back? He has to come back to the same trader after 2 days, after 3 days, and then the time taken, because to reach that 6 kilometers, he has to travel 3 to 4 hours. And that is his crucial period during this harvest time. 3 to 4 hours in the morning or afternoon is extremely crucial. Like, when Arun was explaining in this video, there are these people work on 7 days, and then the first picking is almost completed, and then they take a rest. And that during that 7 days, if he has to go for 6 kilometers, spend half a day to just take his cotton and then bring it back and then take another day, it is not worth for him. So even though he knows very clearly that the trader is exploiting him, they just sell and come back. So that is the biggest problem, and that is what we tried, we solved through Chetna. You say, okay, we come and pick the cotton from your gate at the price that is fair to you and fair to us.
So being involved with Chetna is a massive relief for the farmers, because they don't have to worry about that horrible process of trying to sell their cotton after 6 months of incredibly hard work. Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, a lot of conventional farmers come and say to Chetna when we are collecting that, it's okay. Can you take our cotton also? Even if you pay slightly less, it is okay, because your weighing is fair, and you give the right payment, and we know that you are not exploiting us. Can you take our cotton even though we are not organic? Just take the cotton. That's what they used to keep saying. And unfortunately, we can't take, because we don't work with conventional cotton at all. So we tell the farmers, you convert into organic. And and when we build a market, we will definitely come and support you.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been firing some personal questions at Ranga this morning, Jenny. So I'm going to fire one at you. You're an amazing campaigner and amazingly committed to sustainability. Can I ask you, what drives you?
I think inspiring stories really is what drives me, that there is so much reason for hope. It can be really disheartening looking at the news, and obviously we've got a situation with Ukraine at the moment, and there's a lot that can really get people down. But when you work in the sustainability field, for a start, you meet all sorts of inspiring people like you and Ranga, and also there are so many incredible projects and campaigns that are really making a massive difference, like we've heard today. And it's those that inspires me to keep going, that we just need to spread the news about what can be done and enable more people really to be part of the movement for change, for a fairer, greener world.
Fantastic message on which to end. Thank you very much. So on behalf of Cool Schools, I would like to thank you both so much for joining us today. For me, it's been a fascinating event. Ranga, thanks for being 2 people in many ways. Thanks for stepping into the breach for Aaron. Please wish him our best. Hope he's better soon. And please thank him also for his contribution today that he probably didn't know he made. So and our thanks to everybody, to the audience. Who knows, hopefully we'll see you all again next year.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you, everybody,
Okay.
for taking time. Thanks, Jenny. Bye.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.